Hey, welcome to some more advanced. Here we're gonna talk about these rolling R's, and we're gonna talk about how it's a big nuisance. On the West Coast is most apparent because there's so many Mexicans and people that, that's why, because there is no X. We're going over all that here. X is a whole, it's just not proportionate. That's why it's an X. It's spelled out ECKS. It causes dysplasia. I had a person draw, ECKX like that, and you can see how you don't need this to say X in anything. And you can say example, and it would be more proper. They need to get rid of it. And it's just a hole, and it's basically it's a circle, and it has a hair going all the way through it, or a string going all the way through it, and it's like it is an infinite string that goes through it, and it's impossible to have a string that is that goes all the way through it all the way. And here you can see how that would feel, with your butt crack, or you could just so that's part of taking apart all of the languages and getting rid of tongues, because tongue is basically speaking X, which is, there is no infinite, of course, because there is a finite number of things, and it does expand. There's an X in that. Expand. There's a lot that has to be taken apart. There's a lot of glue stuck to things. And so here we go. This is kind of I guess you could say a joke, but what a fucking tire. Because they have scrapers, and rolling R's kind of reminds me of something. Reminds me of infinite, and probably Y also. Anyway. Basically, when you say like we also have halal food. When you say halala, that is not possible to say without being infinite, and it's also not possible to really make sense. Because see, when you go al, and there's ah down here in one syllable, ah, and then there's dl, and you can't have d and l, be d, l, da, f. That's people. That's not right. You can't have that in universal. And the word tongue might as well be X. That's why in Japan they have the two lines right now, because we have the X over here with the butt, and we also have two bombs, which obviously are these two here, which landed off a little bit, like the Italians, which we have to cover off a little bit, off a little bit, and so that is impossible to complete. There is no forever, there is no turn, because it's like having like a really expensive car and driving it, with that. And all these music videos and stuff are just rich in general have people with cars that work, but they should probably, begin by maybe, riding around with cars with flat tires like they're rich, because anyone who actually will drive a car cannot drive one with a tire sticking out like this. So goes the question mark, but, and things that bother me like that, bit, and then it becomes bit, B and T, it would be bit, 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 and then it becomes that little freckle, and then you have Mickey Mouse, bit, 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 paint, and all of that little stuff. Exploso word is basically what that would be, but as an exploso, there's supposed to be a lingam. It's supposed to be able to go in and then let it go. I'd probably say Indian would probably be the explanation of all of this shit once we're done with all the other extra stuff about the stuff. To get. So, here's a little diagram of the tongue and the teeth, and a little, and then, it's impossible, it's like erder being a word, and that being doing it. It's just not something that, I don't really know why I wrote that, but erder, doesn't really seem to have a stop ability, and, there's no reason to draw feet that are like that. It's, so, people have bigger, booger, they hear this stuff constantly, and it bounces off physically inside, the little packet, the gluteus maximus, I guess, or gluteus, whatever. And, it's like saying aroth, that's not a complete sentence, and it can't be done. We have stories in English because it fills up liquid. It puts it in like a cup, and then it pours it into the next thing. But it doesn't do that with the other languages. Chinese kind of does it. But it's more like a piece of General Tso's chicken between a couple of toes. So, here we have a whole, and that would mean hola, or ola, and there's an H there, and it has to be pronounced. All of those have to be pronounced out of it. Also, you can't say ola, ole, olu, ole, and ole. You can't say holo, hole, holo, holo, or hole with an H. And holo, is not even possible to say, because each one of the, hol is not a complete flop. It's not a complete floppy. It's not a complete ploppy. And, so, it's like, here's an example, okay? So the word bending, if in English I could say binding, bending would be binding, bending and bending, and then it becomes bending, and then you think of, so you can't say sombrera, or sombrere, or sambrara, or simbrore, like you do when you're a child in English, and that it would be acceptable. So, you can't really have any word bending, and because of that, and bending would be binding in Spanish, which is infinite, it would not work. It's not an actual language, it's not a workable language. We also have here masculine and feminine both together. the eyeball is masculine and feminine when it cries. That's like, you know, a lot of math into that. But it's really impossible to have one and the other, and this is going on, a physic, you know. Also, you know, you could, I forgot something about having this rubber band around my hand, like how it goes like this, and it kind of fills it up with just that little bit of extra, and it looks like, you know, little, you know, looks like my hand is kind of full of a small amount of liquid here, you know, as you look at it, you know. You know, it's very different than not having this band on as you see it, you know. And so here we have, you know, a horn. Horny if you dropped a letter. You know, because everyone who turns around and talks has a huge thing that holds up a big horn, you know, and it drops the little grains and pieces in it, you know, which are the feelable pieces that you're feeling now. You know, if small pieces were dropped into the thing, you know. Easy fix, itsy bitsy spider, you know, and then, you know, that's garbage, you know. This is all okay, so, you know, okay, so, you know, this is universal. When you speak and it layers over and it finishes the physic of my hand, you know, saying, okay, so, with queso in it, smaller than the size page of, you know, this, you know, would fully fabric, you know, the okay, so, in the queso. And, you know, I'd probably say also, you know, snoring, and also that all three of those things are similar in that way. Now, I'm not saying that it's completely impossible to roll that tongue, but I am going to say that it is for now. And that rolling R's is really something that is impossible. And, you know, since there are two different frequencies here, and when you're saying, you know, adult, you know, you could say adult, you know, and it doesn't work right. You'd have to go to Aos or Aoth, you know, but in itself is X. And it is the same thing as, well, it's pulling on a little netting. You know, it's like a little, when you say, is when, you know, they, you know, eat steak and they go, and they bite steak like that, take pieces out, and, you know, and people can be like thekte, and they're actually pulling on the lingam netting. You know, it's like a little mini fabric net condom, it feels like. And it's like, so that is also another issue that runs together, and it creates what feels like cum, you know, when you get used to how that feels. And I'll probably say that T and H probably is caused by these rolling R's, and, you know, just by that itself, and moving. I guess that's about it about that. It's really important. I want to be able to take apart everything. The biggest thing about speaking in tongues, which people thought would be the universal language, but, you know, you can't really have a steak in your tongue, you know, when, you know, you are, you know, talking, you know, you can't have a steak in, you know, and you can't do it, you know, infinitely, you know, because there has to be, you know, somewhere for it to go. You know, you can't have something that is just, you know, there's got to be, you know, there's no such thing as infinite. Okay, and I guess that's about it. It was like an X has an O in the middle of it, you know. All of them must bend. All of them have to be done. So I want to be able to bend every single word in every single language, and I'm gonna do it in my lifetime. Damn it! And yeah. So that's about it. Taking that apart gives you lots to do. If you look like this guy here, you'll probably never get it done. Because your name would be dangerous. But, that's just how it goes. There's a pause in thinking, and it all has to do with this part here, and adder, and grda, and yodeling, which is not allowed. It's illegal. It has to do with infinity, which is fitting, in, and, fitting in, and so there you have it. Horrible start. This isn't enough. And, I don't think that music would even explain mucus any more than what I have already backwashed by making this page. There's so much of this stuff that could be done. And you just don't see what I'm seeing here when you say trough, and then you have GHs building up. And then I'm going into a store, and I was doing some reset work in Belton, South Carolina, a couple years ago. And, I saw this lady who had this nasty looking nose with hairs poking out and old nasty stubble growing on it. And it just had all of the UGHs and BNs. Then you have Beaner as well. Is where that probably is. In fact, Beaner to me sounds like a butt plug. I got 2 phones. One for the butt plug and one for the load. You think people are going to like that when it's rolling like that? There's no way a tire is going to be able to roll like that. If it was a tire like that, even then, you can't have a heart-shaped tire. Because it's an inverse. It's the same thing here, based. So... but all of these build up, and BT and bit and, all of that needs to be studied. We got to get rid of those because they turn into little zippers, on your zipper. B and T, bit, or it's the little freckle with Mickey, and then you look at a little freckle on your finger and you say Mickey, and then you say, please, and see how it has that little push. Anything, so that's the issue, is how these build up. And in every language it builds up, but we could do it with English and just take everything that has been raining down and just say, it goes into this cup right here, and no more, bullcrap about killing people because school buses live longer. And just that a spider could crawl inside of your dick if it was envisioned, as a little pipe. But you couldn't feel something going inside of your most sensitive area, which is language. And dropping little small pieces of eye butter. What it's for. So, why can't we do more science?